The first question that came up was, how do you break a weight loss plateau? So the question started out with, I'm currently doing a 19-hour fast with 5-hour eating window, and I've lost about 25 pounds in 9 months. I feel fabulous, but I still have weight to lose. So again, the question about the weight loss plateau, what to do. So we get this all the time. Weight loss plateaus they can be for a number of reasons. And so in the clinic, if somebody comes in and says, hey, I've plateaued, what am I supposed to do? First, we have to understand the difference between a plateau and what I call a set point. So some people feel stuck at a weight, but they're like, doc, my pants are getting looser, things are fitting better, but somehow the scale looks exactly the same. And they'll call that a weight loss plateau. And yes, the number on the scale is the same, but it may be as simple as your body composition is changing, meaning the distribution of the weight is shifting. So you might be having more muscle and less fat tissue. So that's really an awesome thing, right? So we want that to happen where you're building some muscle and you're improving your body's metabolic health by doing that. But the scale might look the same, but it's still satisfying because your clothes start fitting better. So that's one thing. The second thing is many people have been told they're going to be losing 1 to 2 pounds per week for an infinite period of time. And of course, we know, Rich, don't we, that this is absolutely not how physiology works. So the human body has been designed to gain weight and only lose weight if it's sick or dying, right? So it's unnatural to lose weight. And if you lose a lot of weight very quickly, your body's going to put on the brakes and try to protect you. So it's actually a protective mechanism to slow things down periodically. Now, somebody loses 10 pounds and then they're like, Dr. P, I've lost the momentum. It's like I'm working really hard and I've plateaued. What do I do? Well, first of all, if that's the case and you're still following your fasting routines and your exercises, it can be as simple as your body composition is changing. So again, you might notice your clothes continue to fit better, but your weight is not changing very much. That's okay. A lot of times people are disappointed, but I'm like high-fiving. I'm like, you are crushing it. Your body is getting healthier and it's going to break through that plateau and get moving again. So again, understanding, is this a physiologically normal plateau or pause in the number change on the scale, or is it something else? Now, if you told me I'm drinking some more alcohol, I've stopped exercising, I'm eating a lot of sugary foods, or I went on an all-you-can-eat cruise and I couldn't help myself, I ate every pastry known to mankind, yes, you are going to plateau. Absolutely. You may even gain weight. So again, this is something where tracking and identifying, are you keeping your fasting windows or do you need to extend them a little bit? Do you want to change out what you're eating or how you're breaking your fast or what you're eating before your fast? There's lots of different ways to do this. And that's why we've tried to make it as simple as possible, that you may not be able to go see somebody who specializes in this, but you could tap into your app and you can use that to help guide you to the next step so that you can break through and crush it, right? So that's the plateau question that often comes up and can be very frustrating, but oftentimes is a wonderful sign that you're actually doing really well and your body is adjusting. So second question, I've been doing intermittent fasting for almost 2 years, doing a 16-8 protocol. I've been stalled for several months with my weight going up and down, but no real progress. I'm 12 pounds from my goal weight. And what is the best way to jumpstart my weight loss again? I also eat a ketogenic diet. Thank you. All right, so this is somebody who's really doing everything that has been working for them to get within 12 pounds of their goal. A, Congratulations. That's like so awesome. So, I would be high-fiving big time in the office and people, outside of the office would be hearing me cheering. But anyways, so that's really great. As you start approaching your goal weight, first of all, is it really the true goal weight? Meaning, is that the best weight for you, or do you have more muscle mass? So, for example, bodybuilders that I work with, I can't pinch any fat off their body, but their BMIs might show that they're overweight or obese. And they say, my doctor told me I should lose X amount of weight. Fortunately, most people figure out that's probably not correct. Right? So, body composition, again, if you carry a lot of muscle, to have anything to anticipate for your height. So, the best way to jumpstart weight loss again, that's tricky because again, we talked about the plateau and your body is actually adapting and trying to figure out, do I need to lose more weight or not? That's a really, really important thing. Okay.
Hey, Naomi, I'm just going to break in. Your audio is a little clunky. Maybe try to
Okay. Is this better? Is this better right
there we
now?
go. Yep.
That sounds a
Okay.
bit better, yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Sorry
you very
about
much
that.
for everyone in the chat letting us know. That is very helpful.
Yeah. So again, the most important thing, so if you are trying to jumpstart your weight loss, the key is to make sure first you track and understand what you're doing now. So again, how often are you eating? What are you eating? What kind of exercise? How's your sleep? Are you connecting with other people? Are you laughing enough during your day, right? Like the sort of general things like how are you doing? And then once you understand where you're starting from, you can make a tweak in one of the areas. You may extend a fast for a little bit. You may change how you break your fast. So you might say, for example, I'm going to break my fast with some protein, or I'm going to add exercise before I break my fast. So you can kind of change things up a little bit and see if that makes a difference for you. Again, it starts with tracking and figuring out where you're at and then identifying, okay, what do I need to do to tweak some of the levers, such as what you eat, the timing of when you eat, the frequency. A lot of people have been told they should eat like 6 times a day, and obviously that's not helpful. That's a grazing pattern, and that tells your body you need to grow. So if you're done growing taller and you're not working out in the gym all the time, it's kind of only one other way we grow. So just kind of think about that as you're thinking about what could jumpstart your weight loss. What do you think, Rich?
I
Anything to
wholeheartedly
add?
agree. I think, yeah, definitely would like to reiterate the congratulations for this particular individual who submitted the questions. You're very close to your goal. It would be, again, start working on, if you seem like you got the fasting and nutrition kind of in line. What's your stress? What's your sleep? Are there ways, you mentioned, Dr. Perella, about are you laughing enough during the day? Or, what kind of leisure time are you able to experience on a regular basis? Stress is a pretty potent weight loss resistance factor, so it can slow things down a bit, or it can kind of stall you out, just kind of related to that weight loss plateau that we talked about in question one. This is right in the same vein there.
One great question. Hi, doctor. We know fasting is a good thing, but when does fasting become too much of a good thing? What are your thoughts on the line between just right and too much fasting? Wow, so this is don't you hate getting answers from doctors that are like, well, it depends, but that's kind of the answer here. So here's how I would respond to that. Fasting is something your body can naturally do so that you can survive. So that's important. You can fast better the more metabolically healthy you are, meaning that your body can use different fuels easily. It's harder to fast if you might have insulin resistance or prediabetes or diabetes. And so you have to listen to your body, and your body signals you and you signal back. So if you are doing extended fast, I can't really speak to that. I would say you need to have medical supervision and make sure your electrolytes look okay, that you're not on any medications. And then of course, there's people who should not be fasting. And so, of course, if you're pregnant, definitely we don't recommend fasting. We don't recommend fasting for your children. We don't recommend fasting if you have an eating disorder or a history of an eating disorder. Some people have a history of substance abuse or dependency, and we don't want to sort of trigger some kind of maladaptive behaviors. And so you want to make sure if you have any concerns that you're working together with a professional who can really help guide you and hold your hand, because it's very powerful. So you want to make sure you do it well and get that guidance. Any other thoughts or additions, Rich?
Um, yeah, I think that definitely takes care of it. Fasting is not for everyone. It's also not a one size fits all. Something, if you're newer to it, you maybe want to start a little bit more gradual, closer to the 12 or 13-hour range. As you kind of get more accustomed to it, you may find it gets a little easier. And if you want to push closer to the 16 or 18-hour range, that can work great. I currently do more in the 14-hour range, and I've been fasting for probably about a decade at this point. Um, that's right now that's working for me. I've tried a variety. I definitely started on the shorter, I started and failed at 16 hours and trying to get daily 16. So if that doesn't work for you, I tried kind of the training wheel effects, which we'll probably talk about a little bit later, like the bulletproof coffee or fatty coffee with butter in it and stuff, to try not to spike insulin, but I wanted to like get some calories to try to make it to 16 hours. So I've tried a variety of things. There is some trial and error involved. If you're looking for more weight gain and growth, which tends to be a minority of folks, you're going to want to be a little bit maybe shorter on the fast duration. If you're looking for weight loss, sometimes it does help to get into the 14 hours or longer, just to help your body switch into tapping into some of those fat stores and burning those away. Um,
Those
yeah,
are really good points. I mean, it really is personalized. And the way I think about it is if you're fasting and it's causing you stress, so you're looking at your clock and you're like, oh my gosh, I have another 30 minutes, it is no longer serving you, right? That's what I mean by listen to your body signals. So if you are very hungry, you probably need either hydration, some salts, or some protein. And that's important to listen to your body if you are experiencing that. So you don't want to force a fast. You want to train your body to be able to fast safely and
it's
effectively.
it's a fasting is a stress, but it's a good stress, or it can be an adaptive stress, like a metabolic health training uh, approach in some ways. So just like exercise, if you overdo the exercise, that is counterproductive, and fasting's the same way. You can't just always be pushing too hard on that, or pulling too hard on that lever of health. So that's important to keep in mind if you're having a
All
stressful
right.
week. Yeah, there's things outside of your control.
Right. And I agree. Stress, it doesn't have to be stress, right? So it can actually just make life easier. So those of us who have crazy schedules, you might have small children, you might be working long hours, be a caregiver, shift work, you might really use this as a tool to simplify your life. And it works quite well if you do it well. So if you ever have any questions, get some support with that because there's many ways to do it really well. Some of you might have heard of a medication called Ozempic or Wegovy or Manjaro or Zepbound, and these are the injectable weight loss medications. So a lot of people have questions about that. And so I have a question here. My insurance companies recently stopped covering Ozempic, which is the injectable weight loss medicine. And I'm worried that I'll gain back the 45 pounds that I've lost over 10 months, as well as see the return to a pre-diabetic state and higher blood pressure. What can I do? Is it inevitable that I will regain all the weight I lost? Wow, that's a very common question. And honestly, it's such a complicated answer, but I'm going to try to simplify it for the general public to and of course, talk with your doctor about this. Studies show that weight loss based on medications, when you stop the medications, you will regain the weight. That's for all weight loss medications that we have on the market right now. It includes the injectable medications. And they show specifically for the injectable medications that by about 2 years, you're going to regain the weight. Now, is that for everyone in the general population? We don't really know for sure. All right. So people have been using these medications that were in these studies and they were told to cut their calories. So that's a different kind of a plan. And nobody was monitoring, are you doing exercise? So we just don't know what happens if you actually are crushing it with the exercise and, including your intermittent fasting, including your protein intake, staying hydrated. But it's likely that unless you're really making a significant change in what you're doing, you will regain that weight. So what can you do? You can, again, track and figure out what you are doing now and make sure that gets better, at least stays the same. And stay in close contact with your doctor because there might be things you can do. For example, somebody will be started on a new medication not related to weight that can cause weight gain. If you're on a medicine that causes weight gain, it almost doesn't matter, right? Like you're sort of going to have to work at that and figure out some solutions. So there are options. You do not have to necessarily return to a pre-diabetic state, even if you start regaining some weight. You can actually improve that with things that lower your insulin. Take a walk, go swimming, hang out, in a physically active location, right? Where maybe you're standing, like right now I'm doing a stand-up desk, right? So I'm trying to make sure I keep my insulin down too, right? So that's helpful. Doing the intermittent fasting, finding that fasting window that works really well for you. And what we mean by working really well is that sorry about that. What we mean by working really well is that you are going to be in control even after your fast. So if fasting prompts you to eat, irrationally afterwards, that's probably not a good fast duration for you because it puts you out of control. So fasting should give you back control and allow you more control over what you're doing and how you're feeling. So that would be the most important thing, I think. I'm also going to then switch over to another interventional weight loss option, bariatric surgery. So people have the question, what are your thoughts on time-restricted eating, intermittent fasting, prolonged fasting for people who have undergone gastric sleeve surgery? And we'll extend that out to a Roux-en-Y gastric bypass, which is the one that has been around the longest, right? So yes, there's a lot of weight loss with both of those procedures. So sleeve gastrectomy and Roux-en-Y gastric bypass, they work a little differently. So let me explain the difference between the two. Sleeve gastrectomy means they shrink the size of the stomach. They take a piece of the stomach out so that your stomach is really like a smaller tube. The food still goes through the same path. Then there's the Roux-en-Y gastric bypass, where they basically shrink the size of the stomach and plug it in a little bit later. Okay, so you actually skip a part of your intestine so you don't absorb as much. You can imagine with both of those, you eat a lot less. So fasting is kind of a way we eat less, but also if you did surgery, then you're eating less because of the restriction of the surgeries. If that happens, then you would have to make sure you're getting enough protein and hydration and salts. And again, that would be something that if you can fit it into your eating window, that's fine. I would not do a prolonged fast. And I would also make sure if you start feeling super hungry, then you might have to talk to your doctor to see a different way around it because we don't want to trigger this sort of uncontrolled eating after breaking the fast. So that would be important. And of course, you have to be taking your vitamins. And so you have to make sure you time those well. So it's a little bit more nuanced, but there's doctors that can help you with that and dietitians as well. So just make sure you're sticking with a support group regarding bariatric surgery. And then you'll have great outcomes too with the intermittent fasting. All right. The next question is, I'm afraid a sustained fasting regimen will result in muscle mass loss. Can you suggest some approaches to minimize muscle mass loss while maintaining or building muscle mass? Thank you. Great question, and really, really important. So, of course, you need to have muscle. Muscle is longevity. That's what we're going for here at Zero, right? We want you to live a really long life feeling great. So, it's about the muscle. If you fast, it means you are going to be very careful and deliberate about what you put in your body when it's your eating window, because you have now sort of primed your body to be able to absorb the nutrients that it needs and that it's going to thrive on. So, yes, there are ways to do that. One, make sure you are getting adequate protein in your diet. So, we often talk about roughly about 1 gram per pound, plus or minus a little bit, whether you're active or not active. Um, I find one of the easiest things to think about is your palm. So if you look at the thickness and the size of your palm, that tells you kind of how meaty are you, right? So some people have really big palms and they have a lot of muscle mass. So they're going to need some more protein than somebody like who has a smaller amount of muscle on their hand. So when you see that, you can pretty much guesstimate that it's about 3 to 4 palms of protein that you need in a day to be able to get sufficient protein so your body can do all the things it needs to do, because every cell in the human body is made from protein. So it's the one thing you have to have no matter what. If you are older, really older than 50, you will need a little bit more protein than somebody who is younger than 50, because your cells are going to just require a little bit better quality turnover replacements, right? Because the cells can start breaking down. So what we want to do is make sure that you're getting adequate protein. And so if your BMI, which we're going to use right now, is greater than 30, and you're not a competitive athlete or a bodybuilder, then you want to aim for roughly about a half to 1 pound of 1 gram of protein for every pound of your body weight. If you have had bariatric surgery and you are like looking for what's the bare minimum, you have to have 60 grams or more, usually more. I usually recommend closer to 90 or 100. If you have a BMI that's less than 30 and you're over 20, you're over 50, you exercise regularly, or you're really trying to lose weight and optimize your body composition, again, aim for about 1 gram per pound of your body weight, and that will be helpful. Rich, anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, fasting sometimes gets maybe a bad rap for changes in lean body mass, but the research doesn't bear that out. And many of the research studies, fasting performs quite well in terms of reducing body fat mass and protecting lean mass, because of the metabolic changes that happen when you're fasting. You kind of shift into more of this fat burning state, which helps you to protect that lean mass. In addition to that, make sure you're watching your protein intake's huge. That's for sure, like top priority if you don't want to lose muscle mass. Make sure you're hitting those daily protein goals. That gram per pound makes the math easy, so that's a good target to shoot for. And even if you undershoot or you don't hit that reliably every day, you're still in good shape because you kind of have some buffer built in with that higher protein target. Make sure you're moving, ideally loading up the bones and muscles. You want to be resistance training minimum 2 to 3 times a week. If you can kind of, if you're familiar with like a 1 to 10 scale in terms of like how difficult you're training, try to be in the 7 to 10 range where you're struggling at the end of that set. If you're going for 10, make sure that you probably couldn't get 12. You want to be having a hard time to get those last few reps if you're doing some resistance training regularly. But even if you're not really into resistance training and you're kind of starting more, a little bit not quite there in terms of being able to jump into the gym and start lifting all kinds of weights, that's perfectly fine. Just make sure you're moving. So if you're sedentary and you're fasting, you're not getting enough protein, that sends a signal to your body that you're not really using your muscles as much. You're not really providing the raw materials to support your muscles. So you may start maybe burning up some of those muscles for fuel, especially when you're fasting. So you want to support your fasts by making sure you're getting the protein, making sure you're moving your body, activate those muscles to tell your body, we need these, we're using them, we're moving around regularly. And that will be, I think, the first most important steps in terms of maintaining as much lean mass as possible. And just don't overdo the fasting, don't cut too many calories. We're not trying to, again, cause these severe calorie restrictions, because that does send some stress signals to the body, and it changes how your body interacts with muscle, especially in that case.
I think that's a great point. So again, you have to load the muscles. If your muscles don't work, if you don't work them, then they are going to stop working for you, right? So your body is going to meet demand. If you demand from your muscles that you need to have muscle, so you get up from a chair, you try to move as much as possible. If you can't get up from a chair, start working towards that, right? Anything you can do that works your muscles and puts them, to work, you are going to be signaling to the body, I need muscles, I need strength, then your body is going to hold on to that muscle. If you are sitting for too long, then your body is like, I don't really need this muscle. It's very expensive to maintain. I'm going to let it go. Right. So that's the most important thing, is just keep active, move as much as possible. And if you're, wheelchair bound, you could still tap your leg. You could, tap your arms. You can lift with your upper body. We've got some really cool people, stories of individuals who are even sedentary, who can do really great things with their body just from making deliberate effort. So excellent, excellent. Viewing a lot of research that during a fast, you should supplement with protein. What is your take? What kind of protein should I be consuming? This is a wonderful question because, there's so much out there about protein shakes and protein supplements, and everything on the, grocery store shelves will list protein or high protein. It's a big thing. And of course it should be, because we need to have protein in our diet to be healthy. So yes, my take is always real food. If great grandma, great grandpa could recognize what it is, it's probably a whole food, a real food. And then if it's something you could hunt, fish, or kill, or that used to have a mom, it's a protein, right? So you can pretty much make it very simple. If you are having the opportunity to eat those kinds of proteins, or even eggs, yogurt, cottage cheese, chicken, fish, beef, pork, lamb, whatever it is, those are all fabulous, and your body knows what to do with it. If you're vegetarian, you might have, for example, soybeans or tofu or tempeh. You might have some legumes like chickpeas or black beans, red beans, things like that. Those are also sources of protein. Those usually require some additional, unless it's quinoa or soy, it will require some grain to make a complete protein, meaning giving your body all the amino acids that you need to have an immune system, to have the energy to do things, to build new cells. So protein, 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 yes. And if it's a real food, it's better. If you are going to supplement, then you want to make sure it's really what's with the protein that matters, right? So sometimes you can get like just a protein. It doesn't taste very good in a powder form or in a bar or something. You have to make sure it's not loaded with sugar, first of all, or some kind of sugar that can really work against you, because sugar and protein turns into a very hard candy in the body, and that doesn't do well for your organs or your blood vessels. So you want to look and see what's with your protein. If it's a protein shake, you want to make sure it's third-party tested. NSF or USP will be the label that's on the package. You want to make sure that your proteins are also with the least number of other ingredients in the package. And if it has a bunch of names that you don't recognize it, that's a problem, right? So What you're trying to do is give your body all the nourishment it needs so that it can thrive. You're not trying to confuse it and give it things that it's going to impair that process. Rich, do you have any thoughts on this?
Um, I guess I'll double click on the third-party testing. Not as many companies will, they actually have to seek out the third party like NSF, USP to get that label put on their products. So they have to pay money, they have to send in their sample of their product to get that test to occur. And if they go through kind of, they jump those hurdles, they cover those hurdles, they're proud of their product, and usually it's a safe product. It's kind of been guaranteed if you see those labels on there. Um, so it also helps because there's so many products out there. The number that will actually go through that third party testing is lower, so it narrows the field, I suppose. If there's you know too much, or there's so much noise, there's so many options out there, you want to narrow that down a little bit. Good idea to go for the third party. Supplemental protein especially can be helpful in certain diet preference types if you're vegetarian or vegan. If it helps you hit your protein total for the day, that daily target of about 1 gram per pound body weight, it's worth it. Try your real food, do your best with real food, but if you need to supplement, your lean mass is crucial. So try to do your best and do what is necessary to maintain that. If supplementing is required, there's really nothing wrong with that. It's better than being protein deficient in your diet.
Yeah. If you want to do the breaking the fast, so there are some
Yeah.
questions about, what breaks a fast? Does this break a fast? Does that break a fast? And we get a lot of these questions a lot. We had a question, can we add cinnamon to the coffee while we're fasting? Yes, you can. So really with regards to fasting and what breaks a fast, if it has calories, it's definitely breaking a fast. And you can think about what's the purpose of the fast. I think that's a really important thing to recognize. Are you trying to reset your metabolism? Are you trying to decrease the number of calories you're having? What's the purpose of the fast? Is this a GI, like your stomach doesn't feel good and you're just trying to give it some rest so that it can recover? Are you trying to lose weight? And based on that, you might decide how important this is. So, common question, cream in my coffee, doc. Is this breaking my fast or not? So if you are going for autophagy, where you're really trying to rest your gut and you put cream in your coffee, that's breaking the fast. However, if you're going for weight loss and you're trying to avoid a caffeine headache, not such a big deal with regards to the overall goal of that. And so you can think about how you're using your fast and what the purpose is. So it can impact hormones depending on what you put in your body. Rich, do you have any specific comments you want to talk about with related relationship to that?
Um, yeah, those two main things you're looking to do if you're trying to determine. We get so many questions, and feel free to send them in through social and through other channels. And we love making sure. It's actually pretty interesting how many products now we've been able to take a closer look at, to look at ingredients and such. But what you're looking to do is, again, avoid calories. You're going to find extremely low calorie numbers in stuff like black coffee and tea. Technically, we consider those not to be things that will break your fast. They're fast friendly, in other words, specifically because they don't spike your blood glucose or insulin levels. And that, in particular, is what's going to shut down the fat burning benefits associated with your intermittent fast. And that second one about, will it increase my glucose or insulin levels? That one can involve a little bit of a deeper dive on the ingredients label. So yeah, definitely those are some of the basics to keep in mind. We get a lot of questions about, like, again, things like gum and even cough drops, I think, was a recent one we got. Again, if they are low calorie, sugar-free gum usually is okay. You're looking for things that are not going to contain specific artificial sweeteners, which I know, Dr. P, you're there's at least 3 or 4 that you're familiar with that can cause this, insulin response because they taste sweet and it signals your brain to release insulin at the GI tract. I don't know if you want to
Yeah.
elaborate on those ones in particular.
Well, so I think basically what we're saying is anything that causes your body to have to respond to what you put into it, like with regards to your hormone response. So if you put certain foods in your body has to respond to it because you're signaling to the body and the body has to respond. So if you are causing your body to focus on what you're putting in your body, it's going to change it. So artificial sweeteners, specifically things like sucralose, which is Splenda, has been shown in several studies that it can cause your insulin to increase. Insulin is a hormone in the body that's naturally produced. We need insulin to survive. And insulin basically tells your body to store. It's a building hormone. It's a growth hormone. So if you eat things that cause your insulin to go up, your body goes into storage mode. So if you're trying to lose weight, not so great. If you're trying to build muscle because you're working out, fabulous, right? Or if you're a small child and you're trying to grow taller, that's really important. But otherwise, many of us do not want to grow wider and we're not sitting in the gym all the time or working out in the gym all day long. So you might want to be careful about what you're eating so that you don't spike your insulin. So I just want to do sort of med school 101. I'm going to simplify this because I think it's actionable. All right. This is what people come to my office for. All right. Now, your body runs on fuels like glucose, which is blood sugar, and ketones. And we're going to set ketones aside right now. And we're going to talk about blood glucose. Blood glucose, I'm going to use the word sugar to describe blood glucose just because it's easier to say. Okay. So you have to have a certain amount of sugar in your bloodstream at any one time, that blood glucose. And if we used baking measurements like teaspoons, tablespoons, and cups, you need about 1 teaspoon of sugar at any one time to have that perfect level of blood sugar so that your body can fight infections, do all the things you want to do, play, have fun, right? So you have to have about 1 teaspoon in your bloodstream at any one time. Now, the key to understand is if your body has very, very high sugars in the bloodstream, it is no longer fuel, it's poison. It causes blindness, kidney failure, heart attacks, strokes, cancer, nerve damage, cognitive decline, depression, anxiety, all of those things from very, very high sugars. We call that diabetes. Diabetes means the sugars are in a range that are so high, it's poisoning every cell in your body. Now, your body doesn't want to be poisoned. It wants to survive. It wants to thrive. And so it has a defense mechanism, and it's a powerful defense. And that defense comes from your pancreas that sits behind your stomach, and it pumps out insulin every time the sugars skyrocket. And what does insulin do? It brings down the blood sugars, and it does that in 2 ways. First, it turns off your body's ability to burn fat so that your body will prioritize using the sugars in the bloodstream. And if you are not running a marathon all the time, you can't burn off a lot more extra sugars. So anything you can't turn off or burn off, your body is going to be signaled by insulin. If you can't burn it, store it. And where do we have infinite storage space? In our fat cells. And that's the tricky part. So anything that makes insulin go up, you're in storage mode, right? And you've turned off the ability to burn fat at that time while your insulin is high. And that's the whole challenge. So fasting trains your body to be able to bring that insulin down. And that's what Zero's doing. We're making it easy for anybody anywhere on the planet to be able to tap back into that fat burning potential that your body has been designed to be able to do. And so that's what's really fun is once you understand that, you understand, oh, this is why I'm fasting. This is why I'm training my body to be able to be nimble and take care of itself. And this is why your metabolic health improves and we can increase longevity because your body has constant fuel. It knows that it can tap into fat cells or it can use the fuel that you just put in your body. So it's super, super awesome. So I think that is a really important thing that I just wanted to throw out there before we open it up for more questions.
Will taking oral supplements or even Tylenol for headache during your fasting window break a fast?
Wow, that's such a good question. So I'm going to say no, but if you have it as a syrup, like a liquid form, yeah, probably that is not that will break the fast. But if you're taking a pill, it's so negligible, I wouldn't worry about it.
Well, very good. Thank you very much. We do have a related video in app within the Explore tab. You can take a look if you'd like. If this was your question, the title of the video is Does Ibuprofen Break a Fast? And it addresses the exact same topic for the most part. Another question, how do you take supplements during the fast if it requires food? And if the supplement's fat soluble, for example, vitamin A, vitamin E or D, or K, I suppose, if you want to include them all, how do those factor in? Because again, they'll be packaged with some calories.
Well, I mean, if you eat, you eat, right? Like that's breaking the fast. So it's a pretty simple answer.
All
Good
right.
question, though. I get that a lot.
Another question, can you do a combination of low calories and fasting to kind of get a 2-for-1 benefit?
Well, great question. So I'm not a huge fan of calorie counting overall because it does matter if you're having, certain calories as Skittles versus certain calories as a steak. So I would recommend focus on the fact that you're fasting for a reason, simplifying life, making your health better, feeling more energetic, sleeping better, those types of things. If then when you eat, you are eating foods that nourish your body and give it all the great access to fuels that you need to have like a fabulous life and feel great and live a long time feeling great, then you're going to prioritize protein, have your vegetables that are fibrous, and make sure you're staying hydrated. Everything else is kind of like accessory foods, right? So as long as you're doing that, you're feeding your gut microbiome by having your veggies. You're having protein, which is giving your body the nutrients it needs. And if it's a real food, it comes with all the other stuff it needs, like collagen, which will be part of what connects for example, chicken to the thigh bone, right? Those things that are in bone broth, that's all part of it. So I would just say eat real food as much as possible. And otherwise, you're prioritizing protein and vegetables in the ways that you'll get to them.
The last 2 hours before bedtime are always the hardest. Um, that's the time I'm the most hungry. Uh, yeah, well, how does that factor into fasting? What can that person do? Love to hear your thoughts on this one because I know
Yeah,
that this
that is
is
a
a common
fabulous
question.
question.
Yeah.
Oh, totally. I get this all the time. So nighttime is tricky because some people have just habits of eating at night, like you sit in front of a TV or you're doing something, you're sort of de-escalating, and maybe you end up sitting with some food because it's something to do. Um, if you're hungry later at night, it means you didn't get adequate nutrition earlier in the day. That means maybe you need to shrink your fasting window a little bit or make sure you're getting adequate protein within your eating window, right? So that's going to be super, super important. If you're not getting enough protein, you're going to be hungry. And what's cool is your body can, sort of do okay for a day or two. You can white knuckle it, right? But if you are constantly deficient in your protein, evolution's going to kick in, and that evolutionary drive to eat is going to kick in. You're going to be hungry and you're going to be eating foods that maybe you didn't want to be eating, right? So I would recommend first figure out, are you getting enough protein? Remember, we talked about your palm sized protein. Are you getting 3 to 4 servings of that in your eating window? If so, you're doing well. If you're not and you're still hungry, you need to be eating protein. So add that earlier in the day. Maybe when you break the fast, you need a bigger dose of protein. If somebody's on medications like these weight loss medications, they're not supposed to eat within 2 to 3 hours of bedtime because the food then comes back up. And so that also impacts dieting patterns, right? So it makes people eat less if you're told don't eat within 2 to 3 hours of bedtime because otherwise the food's going to revisit you potentially, right? So just something to keep track of. It does make a difference and it's super helpful for weight loss if you can sort of decrease that late night eating.
What are some good resources that follow, and where might I go looking for information about women, exercise, and fasting specifically?
Wow, well, you've come to the right place. Like this is where you go, right? So, in the Zero app, that's a great place to go to get information and especially up-to-date information. So, Rich, who's with us right now, right? Rich hosts science reviews every week with the latest research in this space. And so it's really fantastic because then that gets implemented into our content that you can actually just get right on your app. And so that's what we're trying to do is make it as easy as possible for people to understand what we know now and what might be changing with more knowledge. And then you can always have the most up-to-date information. So with regards to women and fasting, so there's lots of confusion because women and men are not exactly the same in the way our body composition responds to different treatments. And so it's very, very important for women to do weight-bearing activities as much as possible. Maintain bone strength and make sure you're maintaining your muscles. In addition, your hormones, when you don't have estrogen anymore, it changes where the fat distribution is going to be on your body. So when you have estrogen, this is pre-menopause, your body will prioritize putting fat, if you're a woman, okay, it will prioritize putting fat tissues sort of in an hourglass kind of way. So on your lower extremities, your butt, your hips, right? Or in your breast tissue. After menopause, you don't have that same level of estrogen anymore. And so what ends up happening is you end up putting the weight exactly where a man might put a weight, around the waistline. And that's what we often see in that space. So just understanding estrogen determines where the fat goes.
All right. We do have, again, very good resources. There was a recent article that we published, Everything You Need to Know About Fasting for Women. We have another series of articles in there as well. So if you are in the app, hit the Explore tab. There actually is a search bar. You can type in women and fasting, and it will pop up a curated list of articles and content directly in your app.
So this webinar is for general informational purposes only and does not constitute the practice of medicine nor the giving of medical advice. So no doctor-patient relationship or has been established. And the content of this webinar is really not a substitute for professional medical advice. So under no circumstances should any of this information be used to disregard or delay obtaining medical advice from your own physician or healthcare team. So we are just here to share some information, but again, turn to your own doctors and healthcare team if you have specific individual questions.